Okay, we've reached that wonderful time, the time to do the 50-hour maintenance on the Branson 2400 2017 model. So pulling out the book of instructions for the 50-hour maintenance, the things to replace are the engine oil, transmission fluid, front axle fluid, engine oil filter, and transmission fluid filter. So in the same book of instructions, the materials are for the engine oil 10 weight 40, for the front axle 80 weight 90, for the transmission and hydraulic oil, which shares the same, they're requiring the Branson original oil or the Texaco TDH 1893. And the quantities for the engine oil with a filter replacement, it looks about 3 liters, just short of a gallon. For the transmission, 13 liters, which is 3.5 gallons. And for the front axle, just under a gallon at 3 liters. The filters, which you can get at your friendly Branson store, going from left to right. We have the transmission filter, right behind it, the fuel filter, followed by the engine oil filter, and lastly the hydraulic oil filter. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't found the Texaco hydraulic fluid anywhere. So I reached out to the manufacturer, Branson in Georgia, and to my local dealer, and he says the 303 is sufficient to meet that Texaco requirement, which 303 goes back to the older tractors, but you know, this thing's made in Korea, so it must be good stuff. For the engine oil, Rotilla was a recommended oil to go with. I couldn't find the 10W40, but the 15W40 for my area, which is northeast North Carolina, is sufficient. For the gear oil, we're just using a standard generic 10W90 fluid. This is Travelers in this case. All 3 of these fluids were purchased at the local Tractor Supply store. The 303 is going for $26 rounded. The Rotilla, you can get a little bit cheaper at Walmart. I paid $2 more for it at Tractor Supply. And then the Travelers, it's $5. They had a 2 for $5 sale going on. Even at Walmart, equivalent's about $5.5 for that. And the sockets, you would think that this being a Korean-made tractor, it would use metric, but for the orifices that we have to disconnect, 11/16 socket is the correct size. You would think the 18 millimeter would be it, but no, 11/16, which surprised the heck out of me. And of course, to make life easier, you want to use a wrench for your filters for removal. So let's make sure that your tractor's in neutral. PTO is turned off. And while we're at it, let's apply and lock the brakes. Okay, so my guess is that this is going to be in here pretty tight, so I have to use a breaker bar to help it break the seal. So here we go. There we go. Get that puppy going. And let the flow begin. Anytime now. There we go. And to help that along, let's pull the plug or the dipstick out to increase airflow. I'm not going to bother showing you that because that's pretty self-explanatory. Well, hell, why not? Let's do it anyway. Now again, we're doing a complete oil change. So the amount of oil that, yep, there it goes. Look at it flow. Look at the flow go. Because of the tight location, you're definitely going to need a filter cap wrench to remove the oil filter, the engine oil filter. And you're more likely to need a breaker bar as well. Okay, now, so with the new oil filter, we're going to put a dab of oil around the seal, coat it around the seal, and reinstall it back onto the tractor. This time making sure that it's not herked down. Okay, so once you're finished fueling or changing the filter and pouring the oil in, go ahead and reinstall the cap. And I left this out in the initial identification of ports to refuel, but the fuel cap is on the right hand side of the tractor. So the next step is we're going to replace the fuel filter. So you want to take it from the up and down position and turn it sideways. On this particular one, it only goes counterclockwise to the left, and that should be closed. Then with that, we're going to loosen the nut and let any fluid in there come out. And I'm probably going to use a spanner wrench for that, so I'm going to pause the video here and also put a collection pan underneath so we can catch any fuel that may fall. Okay, with the container cleaned out and making sure that spring is in place, we're going to go ahead and slide this back on, and we're going to screw this on hand tight. But not, don't herk it on like they did. And two important steps you must do before it's tightened all the way down. Go ahead and open up the pepcock valve and let fuel fill the container. Then shut it off. Then tighten it up the rest of the way. And then the most important thing, we got it turned on again. There are no leaks. Next, very, very important step before you turn on that engine. Continue to bleed the filter. So you'll see two screws on the left and on the right. Open those up until you see fluid coming out. All the air bubbles gone. And then on the right side as well, you want nice flow of fuel. You definitely want to unscrew these pretty much so they come all the way out. Just unseating is not enough to get the air bubbles out. So screw them almost all the way out, then you'll see the fluid flowing when the valve is in the on position. So I think we look good here. We're going to go ahead and start the tractor, and hopefully we don't have a vapor lock, and we'll see what happens.